Hey everyone, Angela here. Life can be challenging. Trust me, I get it. However, I have learned we can either view the opposition or value the opportunity. Ponder on the problem or praise the potential. Focus on the situation or find the solution. Despite the current circumstances you're going through, I invite you to join me today as we embark on a grand adventure to discover the reasons why it's a good time to be you.
Here's the encourager herself, making every day a good day, Angela Henderson.
Good. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to It's a Good Time to Be You. We are so glad that you are here and with us today. Turn to your neighbor and say, it's a good time to be you. Yes, and it is. We are so honored to have each of you with us today on the show. We have something wonderful that's in store for you. Have you been experiencing maybe just a little bit of fear these days? Maybe just a little bit of disturbance in your atmosphere? I just want to encourage you. You know, fear is everywhere. It's always going to be present. It's going to make itself known to us. But it's what we choose to do with it and how we respond to it. We can either face everything and rise, or we can forget everything and run. And I just want to encourage you today that in the presence of fear, always face everything and rise. Because we're never going to do great things until we can step beyond that obstacle of fear. And I love Isaiah 41:10, where he speaks to us so beautifully. And he says, you know what? Be at peace. Don't worry about anything. You know, I'm your God. I uphold you with my right hand. And so when we begin to just walk in the knowledge of what God's word tells us about fear, then we realize we truly have nothing to fear, right? Yeah. Good deal. Today we have an amazing opportunity to share with a couple who have walked through something that was very fearful in their lives. Family's important. Would you agree with me on that? Yeah, especially during this time when we begin to reflect and we begin to think, walking through some really challenging things as a nation, as a society, we begin to really reflect on family and the importance of family. Have you been able to have maybe some extra time to spend with your family? Yeah, I think we all have. And, we begin to build some maybe beautiful memories along the way, maybe taking a little extra time where we didn't do that before. And healthy families make healthy communities and a healthy society. But what happens when you as a parent have done all that you know to do, and you raised your family in the best way that you know possible, but yet you still have maybe some estrangement in the relationships? There's a story in Luke that is shared with us about a prodigal, a son that he decided that he didn't want what his father offered him. He didn't want what was, to remain there. So he decided that he was going to leave home. He thought he could do something better outside of the father's love, outside of the father's care. And so he went about his way and he became estranged. And we hear the story about the young man and all the things that he did. But at the end, we hear how the father was looking and waiting for him. But what happens in those moments of wait? The story really doesn't tell us. But if you've ever experienced estrangement, I could imagine that you would feel lost, you would feel alone, maybe a little hopeless at times, maybe even resentful, maybe bitter, maybe wondering, what did I do wrong? What happened? There's a lot of emotion and a lot of feelings, but we know that the father had worked through all of that, because when he saw his son coming home, he didn't say, do you know what problems you put your mother and I through? Boy, you better get in here. Look at what you've done to us. He didn't do that, but he embraced him and he welcomed him home. And so today we're going to learn about a healed heart through the relationship of estrangement and how God can really empower a relationship having walked through such a difficult time such as that. And so we'll be back in just a few seconds. And remember, it's always a good time to be you. where I got that phrase, it's a good time to be you? Well, trust me, the first time I ever heard God tell me that, I thought he had lost his mind too. However, I learned that through every circumstance and every situation, he was always working on my behalf. And I believe of the work of God in you too. So go to my website at angeladhenderson.com or amazon.com and order my book today. And let me help coach you through your challenges so you too can realize it's a good time to be you. Welcome back, everyone. We are very honored to have with us today Charles and Dorleen Smith. So let's welcome them to the stage. Well, I understand you folks have an amazing story, so why don't we get right down to some questions here, okay? So please, why don't you share with me and the audience how you guys met, how you came to be the dynamic duo of Charles and Dorleen Smith.
Well, I'm from North Carolina, and my husband was in the Marine Corps at the time, and he was stationed at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, in Jacksonville, North Carolina. And I met him through association with a friend. And we decided to go out and have some fun, and my husband was there.
It was February of 1987. We're going to date ourselves a little bit. And we were married May 1st of 1988, so on this past May 1st, we celebrated our 32nd wedding anniversary.
Congratulations. That's wonderful, 32 years. Well, I know they've all just been blissful, right? Every one of them.
Oh, all of them. Every day is a holiday, every day is a feast.
Absolutely.
I can imagine. Well, why don't you share with us then, like, what were this is a story of estrangement, so we know that this has happened in your family, but what was life like prior to that? Share with us what those 32 years were like.
They're a lot of fun. I mean, because I was an active duty Marine and I was in the infantry, I spent a lot of time deployed, altogether over the course of a 20-year career, 7 deployments. When I wasn't deployed, there were often times that we were in the field training. Not that I was gone forever, but I was gone a lot. So when we were together, when I did come back from those deployments, we liked to travel. Amusement parks were one of our big things. We liked to spend time going to amusement parks.
Yes, awesome.
Absolutely. So while he traveled and when he deployed, of course, I was left at home, and I had the children with me. Well, at first, of course, our daughter. So my daughter and I were very close.
Okay.
And we was like, each other's support, so to speak. And then being a military family, we had other military families that we would go, to their homes and, have cookouts or just to give each other strength, because we were all lonely. We were missing our husbands. So that was something that, that we had to do. But other than that, we were a loving family and just enjoyed life.
Yes. I too grew up in the military. My father was in the Marines, and I believe that was the branch that you served in as well. And so there's that saying, once a Marine, always a Marine. And, and so it's so true. And but after he got out of the Marines, he also became a minister, a pastor, and so we were involved in ministry a lot. And I understand that you guys also were involved in some ministry as well?
Yes.
Okay, share a little bit about that, about how that was with your family.
So the nature of being in a military family, just to touch back on something my wife said, is that you become very close because every 3 years or so you're moving to a new location. So the only constant that you have in your life is your family. And that's one of those things that help you to be, very close. And then the other constant for us, because we are a family of believers who've given our life to the Lord Jesus Christ, it was important for us to develop ties and develop bonds in ministries, in the places that God planted us. And, of course, we, learned very early on to grow where you're planted. And we had a very good relationship with, the ministries that we were a part of.
Yes. Love it. Dorleen, how about with you and the children? Were they active in ministry as well?
Absolutely. When we went, they went.
I remember them days.
So, our daughter sang in the choir, and on Tuesday nights or Friday nights. They would have little get-togethers after service for the young people. So she quickly connected with the leadership and their family, their children. So it's kind of around the same age.
Yeah.
So she made quick connections, and she got really close to, their children. And of course, my husband and I, we grew closer and closer to the leadership as well because we was there quite often. We had service 3 times, maybe once in a while, 4 times a week. We would have to come. So we really were a family.
Yeah.
Let's be, tight and close.
Yeah. So you were connected as your family unit, and then also with your spiritual family.
Yes, very much so.
And did y'all also like get involved in community as well, and spend time doing stuff like that together, where your church was concerned, and activities?
We had outings to go to other ministries to support their service. Say if it was the pastor's anniversary or some special guest speaker that would come in town, we would go and support their service. But and then the church also would go on trips through the summer, and everybody would kind of go as one unit as a family. But other than that, it was just service at our home church.
And a lot of koinonia, huh?
It wasn't a lot of community outreach at all.
Well, the Bible says, train up a child in the way that they will go, and when they're older, they'll not depart from it. And so we are getting ready to go for a break, and when we come back and return, we're going to find out about a phone call that changed the trajectory of Charles and Dorleen's life. We'll be back in a second. Hey, as a leader, you are a broker of gifts. So whether you are a professional, a business owner, or a ministerial leader, I would love to accompany you in transforming your ordinary staff into an extraordinary team through leadership development, team building, and personal discovery. You will learn the amazing gifts, skills, and talents that each of you have and know how to bring them together in order to do great things. So reach out to me at angeladhenderson.com and let's begin your amazing adventure today. And remember, it's a good time to be you. Welcome back, everyone. We are here with Charles and Dorleen Smith from the Charleston area of South Carolina, and sharing with us their story about Estranged Fruit, a loving family, very caring, very devoted to one another, devoted to their church family, active and involved. But yet there was a day that something happened. And so Charles and Dorleen, if you'll just share what was going on and what happened the day that you received that phone call that just totally changed the trajectory of your life.
Certainly. Well, I remember that morning I had went to Walmart. I needed to do some grocery shopping. So my day started off great, and was in the store getting my food, my cart, and everything. And so, but my phone rang. So I answered my phone, and it was our daughter. So she says, "Hi, Mom, how you doing?" I said, "I'm doing good. How are you doing today?" She says, "Okay." So then I said, "Well, what's wrong? You sound like something is wrong." Well, she said, "Mom, you can't come here anymore. Hey, you can't come to my house anymore." So I didn't know what to say. I was froze. I couldn't believe what my ears was hearing. I was like, what do you mean? Are you telling me I can't come to your house anymore? And so at that time, it's like my mind shut down. I couldn't comprehend those words. I couldn't. So the grocery that I had in my hand, I put them right there on the shelf where I was. Milk, butter, didn't matter, whatever it was. I put it on the shelf, and I said, "I got to get out of here." So I turned and I ran and exited the store because I started to cry, and I started to kind of, moan and cry out in pain because what she said, as I shared in my devotion, one of the devotionals, it like was a dagger that went straight down to my heart, and I was just in shock. I was traumatized. So I ran to my car because I felt like if I could get there, I could. It was like a safe haven for me for a moment. And I was like, and I was crying, and I told God, I said, my day started off bright and great, but where did this come from? How could my daughter tell me I can't come to her house?
Yeah.
So my heart was broken.
Oh, I could imagine, Dorleen. I could imagine.
And I was distressed, and I just said, God, you got to help me, because in that moment, I didn't even know if I wanted to survive. I didn't even know if I wanted to try, because I was crushed. And one of the devotionals in my book is titled Crushed, and that devotional kind of shares what happened in that moment with that phone call that I did not expect.
It was a part of your soul, was
Yes,
being
absolutely.
ripped out.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, Charles, what was going on with you? How did you receive this information?
So this was in 2000. I was deployed. I was in Djibouti, a small country on the Horn of Africa, next to Somalia. At that time, it was a relatively new site that we were starting to build up and put U.S. forces in. And this was, of course, in the lead up to Afghanistan. This was prior to the official declaration of war, but we already had missions going out of Oman, going out of Djibouti. And anyway, Fifth and Sixth Fleet area of operations. And so we were able to be in contact through satellite phone occasionally. It wasn't like today where you can, FaceTime, anytime you want to. We were able to email at that point. And then, like I said, once or twice a week I could make phone calls home. So I happened to find out about this the same day that it happened.
Wow.
And to give a little bit of context, because that was, I was at the end of, in Marine Corps, Fleet Marine Force units, you spend 3 years or 2 deployments, whichever comes first, and then you transfer. And so at that time, when we came back from that deployment, I was due to transfer and I already had orders. I'd received orders to Paris Island, right down the road in Beaufort. And I shared that with my wife, and she had shared it with the ministry. My daughter was married to the son of the pastor of the ministry that we attended at that time. We were both ministers in that ministry, and I'm just kind of giving a little context as to where this came from. I won't, go into a lot of detail. I certainly won't down talk, or say anything negative about the ministry. It is what it is.
Yes.
My wife began to be approached and told that, it was God's will for her, that when I transferred to Beaufort, that I should transfer alone. And my wife should stay there in North Carolina at the ministry.
Wow.
And that didn't sit well with my spirit. If God can tell you that this is His will for us, then He can confirm that in my spirit. And it was not confirmed in my spirit. It was not confirmed in my wife's spirit. I didn't marry my wife for me to live in one place and for her to live in somewhere else. God said, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother and be cleaved to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh.
Right.
And so that was not an option.
Wow.
Unless I had heard God speak that directly to me.
And so while you were away preparing for war for our nation, there was war breaking out against your family.
Yes.
And trying to bring division and disunity in that. Wow.
Yes.
Well, when we come back, we're going to continue and catch up to find out how you proceeded from this call. So we'll be back in just a moment. Here with Charles and Dorleen Smith, and they are sharing with us about their story of estrangement. And so, Charles, we left off with you, and you were sharing with us kind of the context of what was taking place. So I'd like to kind of just start there.
Yes. So My wife had been told that, it was God's will for her to stay there in North Carolina with the ministry. She was one of the ministers there at the ministry, and that I should go to Beaufort, to South Carolina, to Parris Island by myself. And we didn't receive that. And so when my wife and I talked about it from the phone, I said, I want you to arrange a meeting with the pastor, and I want you to ask this question specifically, because this is what God had given me, because I believe he had enough fear of the Lord that he would answer the question honestly. And I said, I want you to ask him, did God specifically say this, or if this is from him? And if the answer is that God said it, then we will, we'll proceed from there. If the answer is that God didn't say it, then, we are going, and that's the end of it. But I don't think that when I get back home, we'll be returning to the ministry.
Yeah.
And so she had that meeting, and he acknowledged that, no, God didn't tell me this. I said it. And so we determined at that point that we would no longer be a part of the ministry, because, that's just, I won't, I don't want to take away from what God did here, because the most important thing about this book is how God gave us the healing and brought us through. So I won't go into anything further, and there's really no nice way to say what I'm about to say, but it's the truth of the matter, and that is that when we got that call, the only thing that had transpired from loving church family, loving family, is with regard to my wife, myself, our daughter, our son, was that we had decided that we would no longer be a part of the ministry. And so that call was retaliation.
Yeah. And it's sad, we have to be so careful, especially as leaders within a church community, because God really places a lot of responsibility on our shoulders. And so we cannot abuse our authority or our power, that's been given or that's been entrusted to us. And not just for the sake of keeping our ministry up and going the way we want it, but we need to bless our families. And if there's changes, then we have to acknowledge that and bless that and honor that. So it's very obvious that you guys went through a lot of pain, because your daughter then made this call saying you can't come here anymore. And so that brought such pain into your heart and such division over this choice and this decision. So how did you deal with that? How did you cope with that, and what came of it?
Well, in the beginning, like I said, I was just traumatized, and I really couldn't function. I couldn't, so I would just start going to the Lord in prayer every now. My prayer life wasn't really that consistent before that, but through this, I learned how to pray. And God, the first thing he did was reassure me of his love for me, and then he took it from there. And I could not digest a lot of information, and I started searching for books, maybe something that could help me go through my pain. I didn't find any. There were books, written by psychologists and different things, and nothing wrong with that. It's just that I needed something small, simple, that could speak right to my heart about how I felt, so that I could begin to move forward. And so I could not find that. So then the Lord said to me one day, I want you to write a book, and I want you to share your story. But I said, God, how? Because it's so complicated. It's just, how can I share that? And the Holy Spirit said, do it in devotional form. So, it's simple, short, and just talk about your pain. And so the book is actually it's not about my daughter, and really it's not so much about me, but it's about God and his power being put on display, and how he walked me through my healing, how he healed my heart, my broken heart. All glory to him. So I began to write, and in the process I had information because I journal. I love to write, so I journal. He told me to start writing with the earlier incident that I had with our son when we lived in Savannah, Georgia. And so 2011, God said, just start journaling. So I would just write, and that began to heal me as well. And so then I told God yes, put everything in motion, did my pitch to the publishing company. I did everything because I was dragging my feet at first. And he said, I need you to get it done. And someone prophesied that to me, and I took it, and I knew God meant business. Get it done. So I got it done. and so Beautiful. Through that, I was healed. And so I just wanted to help others who may not be going through estrangement pain, but pain is universal.
Yes, it is.
We all experience pain,
Yes.
but God brought us
You know,
through it.
Angela, if I may say very quickly, one of the great things about that book is my wife never set out. She never sat down and said, I'm going to write a book, although she knew that God had told her to. But every day in prayer, in fasting, in meditation, God would give her what now is in the form of these devotions. God would give her writings,
Yes.
ways to heal her heart. And if we have time, maybe we could read one of the journals or one of the devotions. But when it came time to write the book, she didn't actually sit down and say, I'm writing this book. But she went back to the journals that she had been
Yes.
keeping through the whole process as God gave healing. And the book was already written. It was just a matter of putting it all
Compiling
together.
it.
True.
The book is called 31-Day Devotional, The Hearts for Estranged Mothers, Peace for Hearts in Pieces. And so we just invite you to be able to pick this up on Amazon.com. And it's an amazing book. And Dorleen, I'm just so grateful, and Charles, I'm so grateful that you guys walked through this. It was a hard journey. And it's one that you're still walking through, but you're walking through it victoriously, and God has definitely brought healing to your heart so that as that opportunity arises, when the reconciliation and the restoration takes place, you guys will be ready with opened arms, just like the father waiting for his son to come home in the prodigal story. So tell me, when did you realize, guys, that it was a good time to be you?
Well, for me, I realized it when, through the process, I asked God a lot of questions, of course, many questions, but none of those questions brought me freedom, none of them. But it wasn't until I asked him the right question, and that was how can I glorify your name through my pain? How?
Amazing.
And when I asked him that, I began to walk in freedom, and then I realized then, and still do, that it's a good time to be
Amen. Awesome. Charles, how about you?
Well, for me, we oftentimes say that when it comes to certain situations, especially painful situations, I'm over that, I'm past that, I'm healed. But I've found that if you say that and then you think about that situation, you talk about it, and those old feelings still come up, you still feel pain, you're still hurt, you're still crying, then you're not really past it yet.
Yeah.
So I realized it was a good time to be me when I could, like the father of the prodigal, say, my love will never change. My love is unconditional. I'm here waiting with open arms. When I see you at the end of the road, I'll be ready to run and put a robe on you, put a ring on you.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your story of healing with us today. It's amazing.
Thank you for having us.
How about at the count of three, let's tell everybody it's a good time to be you. 1, 2, 3. It's a good time to be you.
Hey everyone, to get Dorleen Smith's book, The 31-Day Devotional for the Hearts of Estranged Mothers, Peace for Hearts in Pieces, go to Amazon.com. And remember, it's a good time to be you.